So for the last day of my 7 Days of Steampunk series, I thought I may as well finish off with another art journal page in my Dina Wakely multi-surface journal. So today I have a selection of blue paints from Indigo Blue. I have got Townhouse Teal, I've got Park Lane and Coastal Walk. 3 different shades of blue. I've also got a pot of white gesso that I'm going to use to start off with. Now, the thing with the project today is that I'm going to be using the gesso, but also mixing in the blue paint into the wet gesso as I go. I'm going to be creating my background using all 3 colours. So I'm going to start off just by picking up some of that white gesso and then just liberally going over the entire page with the white gesso. Like so, making sure I get plenty on. I'm not particularly bothered about going right to the edge of the pages because you know me, I don't mind a raggy edge. Quite like a raggy edge actually. It creates its own kind of border. So that's fine. Okay, so I've got the white gesso down. I'm not even going to bother cleaning the brush. I'm just going to pick up some of the darker blue, which is the Park Lane, on the wet brush, and I'm just going to start working that blue into the page. I'm just blending the colour in using that wet brush. And then from the darker, I'm going to pick up the lighter blue. So we've got a nice variation in colour shades in the background. Grab another bit of the darker just towards the top. Not necessarily trying to create an ombre kind of effect, but a bit of tonal variation would be nice. Just blending in, and then I'm going to grab the turquoise and just add some of that into the mix, just so we've got a nice breakup of colour and it's not all one kind of shade in one place. Just keep working it in until you're happy, or I'm just going to keep working it in until I'm happy just with that kind of colour mix into the background. I think that's going to do. Let me just tilt that so we've got so the light's not shining on it because it is still wet obviously. So maybe a little bit more work down here at the bottom. Grab a little bit more white, a little bit more of that, and then just work that in. Yeah, it kind of blends it back out then. Okay, so now I've got my background done. I'm going to dry that off and then I'll be right back. Okay, so now that the blue is completely dry, you can see the difference in tonal variation in that background there. So you've got lighter blues and you've got darker blues up here. So it's not one solid matte colour. So you've got all that difference and interest in the background. So my next step is to grab a little bit more of that white gesso. I'm just going to put a little bit onto my craft mat just here. And then I have a piece of natural sponge that I'm just going to grab some of the paint with, and I'm just going to work it into the sponge, and then I'm just going to lightly just dab some of that white in place, just to kind of give the impression that we've got some wisps of cloud in the background. I want a little bit of a kind of sky effect. I'm going to take it off the page and then just keep rotating the sponge so I'm not getting kind of the same pattern repeating over and over and over again. So just kind of work it lightly and then heavier and then lighter and then heavier. Just keep twisting the sponge a little bit just to kind of get that effect of wispiness in the background. It doesn't matter whether they actually join up. A bit heavier towards the edge. That just helps to break up that background a little bit. So bring that in and work it back out again. Just to kind of give yourself a little bit of mottling, if you like, so you've not got just solid blocks of colour. I'm just going to keep turning and twisting and working until I'm pretty much happy with the end result. Just a little bit of wispiness off there. A bit more towards the bottom. And just keep on going until I think I'm going to be happy. Break up the edge a little bit. And maybe a little bit more just up in that top corner, or those top corners, just to kind of help soften the edges. I think that'll do. Okay, get it dried and I'll be back. Okay, so I had a minor malfunction there. For some reason it started to record and then just shut itself off. I don't know why, but I'll try and recover what I've done. So this is a new stencil. This is called Big Fish. It's part of my April stencil release. It's got, well, obviously it's got a large fish and a small fish on there, compartmentalised, so it's in segments. So you can see that. I'm just trying to see if I can take it off. There you go. And that's what kind of like the effect you get. And I've gone through using Dina Wakley Red Ruby paint and lemon acrylic paint from, like I said, Dina Wakley. So that is the Big Fish stencil. Now obviously technology fails now and again, so I did put it down with a little piece of masking tape just so that I could actually place it if I'd got any areas where I hadn't quite caught, but I'm actually fairly happy with the way that's gone on, and all I did was use the paint with a cosmetic sponge. So that's pretty much how I wanted it to be. So I just need to dry that off and then I'll be right back. Technology, eh? Okay, so the fish is dry, but just where I managed to catch the edge, I'm just going to go back over with that natural sponge that I had earlier, and I'm just going to dab just to kind of hide where I managed to catch the edges, and that just helps to disguise that little bit of red paint that managed to squeeze its way through. Okay, so I'll just give that a quick blast just to make sure it's completely dry, and then I'll move these paints out of the way because, knowing me, I'll stick my elbow in. When that's dry, we can continue. Okay, so I'm now going to try and place this. Oh, look at that. Typical. I'll just quickly go and answer that. I'm having problems upon problems today. My apologies for that. That was Ian, just checking in to make sure everything was okay and I didn't need anything while he was out. It's very considerate like that. Anyway, let's get on. So I've stuck the stencil back down again, just holding it at the top, and I've got just a standard kind of gel ink black pen. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the stencil as a template, and I'm going to just draw around the inside just to give my stenciled image some definition. But rather than obviously going around the outsides by hand, I'm just using the sides of the stencil to give me a little bit more steadiness and a little bit of definition. So, and because I've got that little bit of extra help, I can put a little bit of pressure down, but not too much. And of course it's going to stay inside the shape. So define the inside edges. So try not to push too hard, but just keep a little bit of pressure on it. If you go a little bit wobbly, it doesn't matter. That's my excuse anyway. Not that we need excuses in art journaling. It's a great use of stencils. Another trick in the arsenal of their uses. And then just that last bit on the fin. So I can now lift that up and you can see the kind of definition you've got just by doing that with your pen. Okay, I can now take that off and then put that to one side, and then I'll need to leave that to dry just for a little while because it is a gel pen, so I can just maybe give it a quick blast and then set it aside for 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, so next up, I've printed off from the computer a picture of an old china teacup, and I've also gone through my collection of Tim Holtz paper dolls, and I've got a couple there and a chappie which I think will fit quite nicely inside of the cup. We'll get to that in a second. So I'm just going to go around the edges of those die cuts just to kind of darken them, get rid of that raw kind of white edge that sometimes the die cut in when it's not particularly perfect or good, which because these are cut out by the millions. I've got a couple of sets that are actually quite bad but still usable with a few little tricks. So all I'm using is a distress marker. This is antique linen, just to kind of give it that little bit of edge. Just takes off the stark white. You could use vintage photo or even a blue, I think actually, which probably would go quite well. I'm only concentrating on the upper half of their bodies, as you'll see why in a second. I'm not going to cut the legs off or anything, but there we go. So that just kind of takes off that little bit of an edge. Now what I've also done is, using a craft knife, I've actually just put a slit along the edge of the cup to create an opening. So what that allows me to do is to then take my figures and just slide them inside as though they were actually inside the teacup. And then this chappy here can slide in and then just hook his hand or his arm just over the edge, like so. And I can just lean those in, and I'm going to turn them over, and then I've got a little bit of tape that I'm just going to stick over there just to hold the legs in place. And then I can drop that down onto my project. So what I'm going to do now is just grab some glue. I'm just going to use a Diane Reevely glue stick, and then just add some glue just to the back. Now, I originally printed my teacup out on sticker paper and then realised it wasn't going to be strong enough for what I wanted to do with the putting the slit in and then putting the people in, so I just stuck it down on a piece of yellow card and then cut it out. That's all that yellow is on the back. Okay, so I can now turn that over and then drop that down to about there. That seems about right. And then just give it a bit of a push just so that glue grabs and takes hold. Teacups are so useful. You can use them for all kinds of things. Baskets for air balloons, sailing boats, cars, flying saucers, which I have done in the past. Okay, so I'm going to give that a second or two to set, and then I'll be right back. Okay, I think we're dry enough to carry on. So what I've done is I've got a pricking mat, and I'm just going to lay that underneath my page, and I've got my pokey tool, and I'm just going to pierce through the page in a couple of places. So there, ooh, let's just torn that right off. Just in the corner there, I might just have to stick that back down again. And then I'm going to punch there, and then I'm going to punch just in the corner there, and then I'm going to punch about there, and then punch about there. So that's given me 4 holes to work with. I've also got some string and a bookbinding needle. And I've just threaded the string through, just add a little bit of wax onto the string just to make it go through the page a little bit easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to thread through like so. Leave a little bit of thread and then sew back through. And then I'm going to just whip across to that one. And then down to the next hole. And then across. See to, yep, let's go to this one. Just gently persuade it through. There we go. Try not to knock my lights at the same time. And then back through that one. And then I'm going to nip across to that one. Just gently, and then pop it back through that final hole, and then I can just take my final piece, or that piece of thread there, and then just gently tighten it up and trim it off. Move that to one side with the trimming mat, or the pricking mat, and then just get a couple of pieces of tape, and then on the back I can just literally just hold them down like so. And then later I can stick these two pages together if I want to. That way it's going to hide it. So we've created a little bit of like a hot air balloon effect and stitched through a little bit of string. I like that. It's cute, it's funny, it's quirky, and I did somewhere, there it is, print off a little quote that I'm just going to trim out. And again, I stuck this down, or printed this out onto sticker paper just to make it a little bit easier. And then just trim off the excess bits. I seem to have lost my first line. There it is. This page has been fraught with things going wrong, not quite working out. Almost like it didn't want to be made. I'm not being too careful about straight lines or anything like that. Okay. See, I could stick that on there. In fact, I think I will. Let's just cut that down a little bit smaller. I kind of had the idea of doing like the fish hot air balloon, but that was about it. I hadn't really had any other kind of thoughts about how I was going to execute the page, so not too bad considering. I won't say it was done on the fly because it wasn't, but now this sticker, oh there it is. See, there's always one little cut in the sticker paper. So I'm going to stick that onto the teacup and then stick this one underneath. I might just add a little bit of glue under that at a later date. Now let's put it underneath there. And again, I'm not particularly bothered about getting them straight either. Cool. Now what do we do with that pen? So, seeing as we've got the black around everything else, we'll just add some black lines. It's a bit whimsical, and using the teacup and the fish as a balloon is a real kind of like steampunk staple. And again, you could go around these things with your Stabilo all pencils or whichever way you want to add shadow and definition. It really, there's a million and one different ways to do the same job. It just depends on how you feel on the day, on what resources you've got to hand. Okay, so that's refining the kind of lines around the box, but just to kind of unify things, I think I'm also just going to draw around the teacup too, because it just kind of adds that kind of unification of colour, because the fish has got them round, so why not the teacup too. And then also just draw around our little figures. And it just helps to kind of pull it all together. And then if you wanted to, you could just extend the line down to the teacup. And it just helps to kind of bring it all together as one image. Just like that. So I want to add some border detail. So instead of drawing loads of lines or wobbly lines, I'm just going to use this old transit card from a holiday that I had in the States a few years ago, and I'm just going to, it doesn't matter whether it drags, it just kind of adds a little bit of final detail, kind of border around the edge of the page. Just do the same at this side. And then flip that round. Just add a few of those lines, just as a kind of finish off edge border. But of course, not going to be content with that. I also want to add a few, oops, little splatters just into the background. I've got a little bit of ink on his face there. There we go. So a tiny, a little bit of black, a bit of spritz of water, and then grab my fan brush. Just mix a little bit of black paint in, and then I'm just going to cover up and then a little bit, let's just see, I've got an old piece of card there that will do. Just put that a little bit at an angle. Just quickly wipe that off. The faces. And that just kind of helps to pull the page together. Let's get rid of that quickly. Oh, and then I think, just in case, there we go. So I just need to dry that off. Okay, so I think I'm pretty much going to call this page done. I'm just going to sign it and date it. March 2019. So there you go. A cute, whimsical, steampunky kind of art journal page. Not a lot in it, but sometimes, you know, you don't need lots and lots, as we've said before. Sometimes you just let the image, you know, talk for itself, is what I'm trying to say. So that's it from me for this one, and obviously that was the last page in my 7-day series, so I hope you did enjoy that. If you did, please remember to give it a thumbs up, share the video with your friends, and if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel already, you can do so by clicking the button at the end of the video. That's all from me for now. I'll see you all again very, very soon. Bye for now. I'd like to say a huge thank you to all of my angels, because without you, these videos would not be possible. Thank you.